All right. Got a couple minutes before we get started here. Looks like we got somebody on already. How about that? A couple seconds before we get started here. Okay, I'll give a couple minutes for about a couple minutes for the top of the hour. It's 8:58. So let's see how that goes. Yep, 8:58. Okay. Actually, I started this a little bit early. I know it says 9 o'clock, but I started at 8:58. So just in the event that somebody wants to log on here a little bit early. So just giving you a heads up. So when you rewatch this and you see that I'm on here early, that's the reason why. Because if I get on late, obviously people are confused about where I am. So I said I'd rather be on here early than late. So I'm looking at the time now, 8:59. Okay. Just give it one more minute here, even though I'm early. All right. I don't know how much stuff I'm going to want to cover here this evening. It's all going to depend on how many people that we actually have on. But I do have a few things we'll probably go through here. I'll just look and see. Let me set this over here. Maybe I'll set this right here. Then I can kind of look at my phone at the same time and see what time it is without having to look off to the side. Okay. So it's 9 o'clock now. So I'll go ahead and get started. I know people chime in at different times, so hopefully, whatever time people chime in, they can kind of catch up on the conversation. So it's been a while since I did a live. At least been a couple of weeks since I did a live, and I've already mentioned that part of the reason why it takes me a little while to do a live is because it depends on which time zone I'm in when I'm actually doing these things. Sometimes I'm a national brand ambassador for a company. And so I got an odd schedule. So my schedule is I kind of work 10 days on, 10 days off. And when I am 10 days on working, I can be on the West Coast, right? Pacific Standard Time. And so that just doesn't work out for some of the things that I have to do doesn't work out great for being able to do lives. Okay. So anyway, it works out a lot better when I'm on the East Coast, and so next week I'm going to be on the East Coast, so that'll work out well. And obviously I'm here in Atlanta this time, so everything worked out well as also. But since we haven't done lives in a couple of weeks, I figured this would be a good time to actually catch up and see how everyone's doing, and just talk about a couple of things that I've seen in passing on the news. And some things that maybe you guys have maybe wanted to talk about that was in the news. But as you guys log on, if you happen to hear me, if you guys log on, just chat in where you're from or what city you're logging in from. So to just kind of give me an idea of where different people are from. But obviously, we haven't spoken since the slap heard around the world, right? So, gosh, when that thing happened, the way I found out about it anyway was my wife. That was one of the last things she mentioned before heading off to work. She said, "I know you just woke up," but she said, "When you get a chance, Google and see what Will Smith did." And I said, "Okay." And so I woke up, Googled it, and I was like, "Goodness, this has got to be a joke." And so, sure enough, I found the video, and once I found the video, that was all I heard all day long was people talking about what Will Smith did. Or I see someone logged on there, Flushing, New York, awesome. Driving through Brooklyn. Ah, I don't know if I mentioned this to you. Dr. Simmons, but I'm actually from New York. I probably told you that already, but I was born in Brooklyn, Eastern Parkway, actually, and moved to Queens, Cambria Heights. So it's kind of funny. Um, I was just telling my wife there's another YouTuber today. Uh, this lady, she's doing a documentary on her life. She started a brand of sunglasses, but anyway, she's doing a documentary on her life and everything. And I think she just did the first series today on YouTube. But I told my wife when I watched it, I said it's so funny watching that because it reminded me of when I took my wife to New York to show her where I grew up. Because I took her back to my elementary school, I took her to the junior high school, took her to the high school. If you ever watch Shark Tank and you see Damon John, the black bald headed guy on there, he and I actually went to the same high school. And funny, if I didn't mention this also, but if you've ever seen the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, the real guy who that movie is about, he actually went to the same high school. Not while I was there. He's older than I am, but he also went to Bayside High School. So anyway, I'm originally from New York. I said all that to say, good. I didn't know you were from New York. How about that? Um, but anyway, so I got everyone got their fill of hearing about Will Smith and the Oscars and what they thought about the whole thing, etc. And if you saw the upload that I created, one of the things I said is that I wasn't going to make a show about it. I wasn't going to make a show about it, and the reason why is because so many people were talking about it, and I was like, I think there's really just about everything that you can say on it has been said. So I didn't want to add to it. I thought people were kind of all smithed out about the whole thing. So I said, I don't think I'm going to mention it. But as the days went on and I started hearing more and more fallout of it, and I started thinking about some of the political ramifications of it, I said, this story actually doesn't sound like it has anything to do with politics on the surface. Excuse me, but the more you analyze it, and more you sit back and think about it, it actually does. Because at the end of the day, what that whole thing was about was really in relation to free speech. If you remember the whole thing that Dave Chappelle went through when he did that Netflix special, there was a big walkout at Netflix, right? So it really was related to politics. And I covered if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch that video. It's called the Will and Chris debacle. But I talk about several topics related to that story. So it's pretty interesting. But anyway, um, I don't want to get into a whole thing about that because that's we still got another chapter of that coming. I suspect, and the reason why I say I suspect is I happened to see something on online recently, and it said that someone saw Chris Rock going into a really high-powered attorney's office in New York. And I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's just a rumor, but if it is true that they've seen him go into some high-powered attorney's office, then who knows what's next. But there's all sorts of talk about him possibly, filing a lawsuit. So we shall see where that goes. But anyway, so I made a video on that. If you hadn't had a chance to see it, definitely go ahead and see that. There have been a few topics that I've seen happen in the middle of all this stuff that I haven't really followed in depth to form an opinion on it. Like I guess, well, maybe I should say I haven't followed it enough to get the details on it. I have an opinion on some things, even if it's just at a cursory glance. But in order for me to really be educated about, I should say it that way. I'm not fully educated on what all the details are. One of the things that I saw was Joe Biden wanting to do something about ghost guns. I guess these are guns that don't have serial numbers. For those of you who've seen that, you probably know more about this than I do. I've seen something on Twitter where I saw Joe Rogan talking about federalizing marijuana. So I guess it's legal in all states now, or is that something that's coming? I'd like to hear more from you guys if you've already been got yourself abreast on that. But I wanted to give you maybe as we talk, as people chime on here, I'll give more of my opinion on that. And the other thing, of course, that's the kind of a big story is what's been going on with Elon Musk and Twitter lately. And so what's been happening with Elon Musk, if you haven't found out or haven't heard, is that Elon Musk purchased like 9.2% share stake in Twitter. And back when I heard about it initially, I said, wow. So he was the largest shareholder. And then there was some talks about him joining the board. And that apparently freaked out a lot of the leftist employees there because I did see that someone was quitting or said they were putting in a resignation because Elon Musk had such a large share and was going to be a member of the board. And I was like, how stupid is that for you to resign? You don't even know where things are going to go from here. But anyway, they just kind of let you know some of the tension around Elon Musk and possibly taking over that company. But then, if you've been updated on this, then you also know that uh, he's decided against being on the board. Apparently, he's decided against being on the board because when you're on the board, there's some rules about not being able to purchase more than a certain percentage of the stock. I think the number is 14.9%. You can't have more than that or something. And so that's definitely not his plans. His plans is to be able to change Twitter fundamentally. And from what I'm hearing, there's really no other way to be able to change Twitter fundamentally other than to practically tear it down and almost start from scratch, like a renovation, like a housing renovation. Is what I heard someone on the radio mention. And all of that would really require him to take it private. So yanking it out of the public's hands and going back private. I used to invest in stocks more back in the day. I'm more so a real estate investor than I am stock investor. So I don't recall what happens when I assume the obvious happens, but I was going to say I don't recall what happens when someone purchases some stock and then it goes private. I don't know if I've because I'm not a stock investor. I don't know if I've seen that happen before, where a bunch of people invest their money and then all of a sudden it was public and now it's private. So that'll be interesting. So I assume that everyone gets cashed out at however much stock that they had at the time. That makes sense to me. But anyway, so that's what's going on with that is that now everyone's sitting and waiting with bated breath to find out whether Elon Musk is going to purchase Twitter. He's got an offer, and I think at $41 billion to purchase it flat out. So this is going to be really interesting. Um, so those are a few of the topics that I've seen people talking about. I'll mention a couple of things here. Where are my glasses? I'll mention a couple of things here. The show that I was working on, I probably told you this on my last live, but the show that I was working on before before the whole Oscars debacle, as I was working on the left field war on poverty. So that's actually what I was working on prior to that. And so I'm finishing it up now, now that I rolled out the other one. Now that I rolled out the Will and Chris debacle, I'm actually finishing up the one that I was working on in the first place, which is the left field war on poverty. So you'll see that roll out here probably tomorrow. I'll probably send this live one out this evening or in the morning, and then I'll send out the war on poverty either tomorrow or on Sunday. So you'll get a chance to view that and chime in on that. You'll see some similarities between what Joe Biden has said of recently in terms of his campaign and what Lyndon Johnson said back in the days when they started the war on poverty or declared war on poverty. Very, very interesting. You'll see it's not the first time that the this whole Build Back Better thing has failed. Very interesting. The other thing I want to mention is I don't know if you've been on the roblett.com site, but if you haven't been on the roblett.com site, it's really just a coming soon site. Heads up, if you already been receiving emails from me, then don't worry about giving me your email because obviously I have your email, right? This is more for the YouTubers or the subscribers, I should say, that watch YouTube. They subscribe to YouTube, but they've never received an email from me. They've never emailed me, etc. And so it just gives us another way of possibly communicating with you. Don't worry, I don't do spam. Don't worry, I don't ever sell anyone's email addresses. Nothing like that. It's really just me thinking ahead of the days when, censorship gets ridiculous and maybe there's this buffer that's in between us to where we can't communicate. And nowadays, conservatives better do all we can to communicate. That's the reason why the Elon Musk thing is such a big deal because Twitter and Facebook really and there's probably a lot of others, social media apps, but I'm not on all these things like some people are. But at least those three, I should say, between Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, they're the ones that are obviously wreaking havoc on anything that you say that disagrees with the establishment. So we need to do all we can to make sure that we keep those lines of communication open, however it is. Okay. Let's see. So if you haven't gone to roblett.com and you're a subscriber or just watch the videos, but you don't receive emails from me, haven't emailed me before, go to roblett.com. There's a place for you to put your email address in there and we can communicate back and forth because there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming. If you haven't watched some of my previous lives to hear some of the stuff that we got planned, you should go back and watch some of these lives because this is really just the start of something great. So it's what's really cool right now. Right now, it's just a bunch of educational videos, current event videos. But if you get the big picture of where we're going with this, you'll really want to be here at the very beginning of all this. The other thing I talked about in the past, just briefly, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it, is whether or not it makes sense uh, for me to hold lives and have a phone number, like a dial-in phone number for you guys to call in. So I've seen people do that before, and I used to run large sales teams, so it's not much at all for me to run webinars. That's really what I used to do. So webinars, gosh, I used to hold webinars. I don't know if I did it once or twice a week. I think I used to do it once a week, but yeah, at least once a week. I know, but for a large amounts of people. So whatever floats your boat. Um, if it works better for you to dial in or if it works better for you to chat on the screen. But either way, if you go to my channel, the roblett.com or excuse me, not the Roblett, on to the YouTube channel and go under the community tab. There's a poll that I'm starting there, and that poll just basically asks if you think it's a good idea for me to add a phone number to the live broadcast, or if you just prefer to chat the way you've been chatting. So I'm just trying to get an idea as to what most people think, if which you prefer. So either way, because I've been on broadcast before with webinars, I know that whenever you start opening up phone lines, it can get kind of crazy because you never know if people are going to hop on and say something ridiculous. So, but I've been here before, as Dr. Phil would say, this ain't my first rodeo. So if someone does, I have the ability. I've got tools to be able to drop people off a call, so I know how to do that if it gets crazy like that. But anyway, those are the only things I was going to talk about. Like I said, I gauge these things around you. So depending upon what you think, we'll start working on a few things. I don't know how long or how far down the road it'll be before we release the official Roblett site, roblett.com site. I don't know how long or how far down the road we'll do that. But right now, it's just that placeholder for coming soon and some of those things to come. But let's see how we're doing here on time. It's 15 after. Chat any questions that you may have. I don't know what questions you may have. If you don't have any questions, that's perfectly fine. If you do, that's perfectly fine as well. All right. So I won't keep this on long because right now I, we're still working on getting everyone acclimated to the fact that we may do these on a regular basis. And so we really want to get some momentum built up for the lives. All right. All right. So I'll sign off on this. You guys can rewatch this. If you got any questions, like I said, type in the comments, let me know, and I'll talk to you later.